There are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders afterwards, right after the meeting. Yeah, and I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal. I think a deal should be made for both. I think Russia has to get back into building their country. It's a massive country. I think they have 11 time zones, if you can believe it. It's by far, from the standpoint of land, it's by far the largest. They have tremendous potential in Russia to do well. They're not doing well. Their economy is not doing well right now because it's been very well disturbed by this. Doesn't help when the President of the United States tells their largest or second largest oil buyer that we're putting a 50% tariff on you if you buy oil from Russia. That was a big blow. And then they say, gee, he wasn't so tough. Nobody else would have done that. And I haven't stopped there. I mean, look, I was all set to do things far bigger than that. But I got a call that they'd like to meet, and I'm going to see what they want to meet about. I'd like to see a ceasefire. I'd like to see the best deal that could be made for both parties. You know, it takes two to tango, right? So, ultimately, I'll have a meeting next week. I had a great relationship with him considering the fact that, you know, I was not nice to him because of the RI pipeline. I ended the pipeline. I also gave the javelins. Do you ever hear of a javelin? Javelin is called a tank buster. They say that Obama gave them sheets, and I gave them javelins. If it weren't for me, all those tanks that were destroyed at the first days of the war because the tanks got stuck in the mud, some commander made a better state. You know, they would have been in Kiev in 4 hours going down the highway, but a Russian general made a brilliant decision to go through the farmland instead. And they just had torrential rains, and the rains were so bad, and it was mud, and those tanks got stuck in the mud. I don't know who that general is, but knowing Vladimir, he's probably not around any longer because all those tanks were stuck in the mud and they went along with the javelins. I gave him the javelins. You know that, right? I gave him javelins. They gave him sheets. But I'm going to meet with President Putin, and we're going to see what he has in mind, and if it's a fair deal, I'll reveal it to the European Union leaders and to the NATO leaders and also to President Zelensky. I think out of respect, I'll call him first. And then I'll call them after, and I may say lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal. If not, I will tell you this. I've seen a poll coming out of Ukraine. 88% of the people would like to see a deal made, and if you go back 3 years, everybody was gung-ho for war. You know, everybody's gung-ho for war until you have it. It's an amazing thing. I had it with a couple of countries where I couldn't get a deal done with one particular country, and I just couldn't. The guy's great. He's a friend of mine. Great, good leader, tough as hell. I couldn't get the deal done, and then he went into war for a short period of time. You know where I'm talking about, first term, and it was nasty. Guys being killed all over the place, and he went through 1 week of war, and I was able to get the deal done. He said this is nasty. Yes, please. Just to follow up on what you were saying there. First of all, Zelensky is not invited on Friday. He wasn't a part of it. I would say he could go, but he's gone to a lot of meetings. You know, he's been there for 3.5 years. Nothing happened. And what is the definition? I mean, do you want somebody that's been doing this for 3.5 years? What's the definition of a good deal? I'll tell you after I hear what the deal is, because there could be many definitions. You know, you're talking about a very large and complex situation. Now I tell you, the war that I just settled with Arjun, and with, as you know, in Armenia, was almost as complex as this one, having to do with roots. Successful meeting on Friday with Vladimir Putin. Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. How will you know that? Because that's what I do. I make deals. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One about China, one about Russia. If I could, on China, your administration agreed to send the most advanced NVIDIA and AMD chips. No obsolete. Well, and then 15% of the 20s. No. This is an old chip that China already has. And I deal with Jensen, who's a great guy, and NVIDIA. The chip that we're talking about, the H20. It's an old chip. China already has it in a different form, different name, but they have it. Or they have a combination of 2. We'll make up for it, and even then some. Now Jensen's a very brilliant guy. And Jensen also has a new chip, the Blackwell. Do you know what the Blackwell is? The Blackwell is super duper advanced. I wouldn't make a deal with that. Although, it's possible I'd make a deal, a somewhat, enhanced, in a negative way. Blackwell. In other words, take 30% to 50% off of it. But that's the latest and the greatest in the world. Nobody has it. They won't have it for 5 years. But the H-20 is obsolete. You know, it's one of those things. But it still has a market. So I said, listen, I want 20% if I'm going to prove this for you. For the country, for our country, for the US. I don't want it myself. You know, every time I say like 747, I want, yeah. For the Air Force. So I just wanted, so when I say I want 20, I want for the country. I only care about the country. I don't care about myself. And he said, would you make it 15? So we negotiate a little deal. So, he's selling a essentially old chip that Huawei has a similar chip, a chip that does the same thing. And I said, good. If I'm going to give it to you, because they have a ER, you know, they have a stopper. What we call a stopper, not allowed. To do it, a restricted, it's really known as a restrictive covenant. And I said, if I'm going to do that, I want you to pay us as a country something because I'm giving you a release. I released them only from the VH20. Now on the Blackwell, I think he's coming to see me again about that, but that will be a ER unenhanced version of the big one. Like I don't know if you know it. We will sometimes sell fighter jets to a country and will give them 20% less than we have. Do you know what I mean? Right. So on Russia, do you see a time, Mr. President, when there could be normal trade between the US and Russia? Should your meeting go well? Should there be peace? I do. Yeah. Russia has a very valuable piece of land. If Vladimir Putin would go toward business instead of toward war, you know, it's a warring nation. That's what they do. They fight a lot of wars. A friend of mine said Russia's tough because they just keep on fighting. They beat Hitler, so did we, and they beat Napoleon. You know, they've been doing this for a long time. I asked a question to a very, very smart man that some people like and some people don't like. Viktor Orban, right from Hungary, the head of Hungary, and he's in that same area and knows the two countries very well. I said this was before Biden didn't do anything to get us out of it. He could have gotten us out of that. It would have. Never happened, I said. So, can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia is a massive country and they win their country and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war. It was a very interesting statement. China's not beating us with trade. Not when I'm in charge, but they were beating Biden with trade. But they never beat us with trade. Don't forget, China had to pay $400 billion worth of tariffs when I was last time. That was last time. And if we didn't have CO, all of this stuff we would be loaded. You know, we're finding hundreds of billions of dollars of cash is pouring into our country now because of tariffs. And all we're doing what they do to us. It's so beautiful to see it. They found last month, as you saw, $25 billion of excess cash flow. They're saying, where did it come from? I said, I'll tell you where it came from. It came from a place called Tariffs, and we're doing very well. We're really doing well. But I expect to have a meeting with Putin that I think it'll be good, but it might be bad. And I'm here for one reason, to get rid of a war that somebody else started. Should have never happened, and if I could end it, great. Complex war, a lot of bad blood. A lot of bad blood. But Zelensky's been there for 3.5 years. So if you put them in a room, now I will say this, ultimately, I'm going to put the two of them in a room. I'll be there, or I won't be there. And I think it'll get solved.